At the bottom of the Grand Canyon, near the place where the Little Colorado joins the Colorado River, there is an opening most visitors will never see. It is not marked by a tourist sign. No maintained trail leads strangers directly to it. And even among the Hopi, approaching it is not simply a matter of curiosity. This place is known as Sipapuni, the place of emergence. To the outside world, the Grand Canyon is a geological wonder, a vast wound in the earth, carved layer by layer across unimaginable time. But in Hopi tradition, the canyon is something more. It is a doorway, a place where the ancestors emerged from a previous world into the world we live in now. And according to Hopi cultural leaders, it is also the place to which the spirit returns after death. The canyon is therefore not only a beginning, it is an ending, a passage between worlds. And once you understand that, the mystery of the Grand Canyon changes completely. The question is no longer only what lies beneath the rock. The deeper question is why generations of people have treated this place as if the boundary between worlds was still open. Long before the words Grand Canyon appeared on American maps, the Hopi had another name for this landscape. Ungtupka, Salt Canyon. The name did not describe an empty wilderness waiting to be discovered. It described a living cultural landscape, a network of rivers, springs, shrines, trails, ancestral settlements, and places connected to ceremony. Near the confluence of the Colorado and Little Colorado rivers lies one of the most spiritually important locations in Hopi tradition. Sipapuni. Public accounts describe it as the point from which the Hopi ancestors emerged into this world. But it would be a mistake to imagine the emergence story as nothing more than people climbing from an ordinary cave. The world below was not simply another underground room. It was a previous existence, a previous age, a world that had reached the end of its order. In publicly shared versions of the tradition, the Hopi speak of earlier worlds before this one. The present world is often described as the fourth world. The people of the previous world had lost balance, and a way had to be found into a new life. The emergence was therefore physical, spiritual, and moral at the same time. It was not merely an escape from darkness. It was a second chance. Imagine living in a world that appears permanent. Its ground feels solid. Its rules feel fixed. Its people assume that tomorrow will resemble yesterday. Then slowly the world begins to lose its balance. Communities turn against one another. Responsibility is forgotten. The relationship between human beings and the earth begins to break. In the Hopi emergence tradition, a world can end not only because of destruction from outside, but because the people living within it no longer know how to live correctly. That is what makes the story unsettling. The danger is not simply beneath the earth. The danger is repeated human behaviour. The ancestors seek a path upward. They leave the old world and enter the present one through the place of emergence. But arriving in a new world does not mean they are immediately given a home. They must travel. They must learn the land. They must recognise water, endure distance, establish relationships, and prove that they can live with discipline in an environment where survival is never guaranteed. Hopi oral traditions connect clans and migrations to a wide landscape across the southwest. Archaeological research has also documented long histories of settlement, movement, farming, ceremony, and exchange throughout northern Arizona and New Mexico. These are not identical kinds of evidence. Archaeology examines material remains. Oral tradition carries memory, identity, responsibility, and meaning across generations. One should not be carelessly used to erase the other, and neither requires us to turn a sacred story into a literal claim about a hidden, underground civilization waiting to be excavated. The story's power does not depend on finding a metal door in the canyon wall. For the Hopi, the connection is already present in the land. Modern culture teaches us that mystery should be solved by access. Find the coordinates. Enter the cave. Photograph the chamber. Take samples. Publish the location. But Sipapuni exists within a completely different system of responsibility. Hopi archaeologist and river guide Lyle Balancourt has publicly explained that although he has visited the confluence many times, he has not visited the physical emergence point itself. Not because he doubts it exists, not because a government agency prevents him, but because he respects cultural boundaries and does not hold the religious initiation required to approach it. That detail may be the most important part of the entire story. A man with ancestral ties to the place, professional knowledge of the canyon, and physical access to the region chooses not to enter. To outsiders, restriction often creates suspicion. Why can't we see it? What is being hidden? What would happen if someone went inside? But within Hopi tradition, not every boundary is a cover-up. Some boundaries exist because knowledge carries obligations. A sacred place is not made more authentic by being exposed to millions of strangers. And an opening believed to connect one world with another is not necessarily a tourist attraction. Perhaps the modern obsession with entering Sipapuni tells us less about the canyon than it tells us about ourselves. We assume that anything hidden belongs to whoever discovers it first. The Hopi understanding asks a different question. What if some places do not belong to our curiosity? The Grand Canyon is often photographed as if it were empty, a colossal landscape without people. But the archaeological record tells a different story. The oldest human artifacts found in the park date back nearly 12,000 years. Thousands of ancestral sites have been documented, even though only a fraction of the park has been fully inventoried. According to the National Park Service, 3,391 prehistoric ancestral sites have been documented across approximately 7% of inventoried parkland. There are dwellings, storage areas, trails, rock art, ceremonial places, and signs of repeated human use. Along the Little Colorado River, ancestral settlements connected by Hopi people to their history were occupied centuries ago. Sites, shrines, and petroglyphs remain throughout the wider landscape. For visitors, these may appear to be ruins. For descendant communities, they are evidence of relationship. That distinction matters. A ruin sounds abandoned. An ancestral place can remain active through memory, ceremony, responsibility, and return. Lee Kuanwisiuma of the Hopi tribe has described the Grand Canyon not only as the place connected to Hopi emergence stories, but as the final spiritual home to which spirits return after death. This means the canyon holds both the presence of those who came before and the destination of those who will follow. Past and future meet in the same place. The canyon is not simply old, it is continuous, and that may explain why the Hopi relationship with it survives, even when outsiders divide the land into parks, counties, reservation boundaries, recreational zones, and archaeological sites. Maps can separate a landscape into pieces. A living tradition can continue to see the whole. There is another path connecting the Hopi to the depths of the canyon, the Salt Trail. In older initiation traditions, Hopi male initiates made a long and dangerous journey through the Little Colorado River Gorge and into the Grand Canyon to obtain salt. The salt was then carried back for female relatives. Today, salt can be purchased almost anywhere, but that fact makes the old journey easy to misunderstand. The value was not only in the material brought home, it was in the descent. Picture the route. Heat held between stone walls, loose ground beneath every step, long stretches where water cannot be taken for granted. The knowledge that a small mistake can become fatal, far from help. The traveller moves downward into a place connected with emergence, ancestors, and the spirit world. Then he returns upward carrying something taken from the canyon. The journey transforms salt from an object into a relationship. It links physical endurance, family duty, spiritual preparation, and memory of the land. The Salt Trail is therefore not merely an old road. It is proof that the Hopi connection to the Grand Canyon was practiced through movement. The canyon was not known from a distant viewpoint. It was entered carefully. Its dangers were learned. Its resources were approached through responsibility. And its deepest places were not treated as empty territory. But during the 20th century, another story began spreading. This one did not come from Hopi tradition. In April of 1909, an Arizona newspaper published a sensational report about an explorer named G. E. Kincaid. The article claimed that Kincaid had discovered an enormous underground citadel inside the Grand Canyon. It described passages, chambers, strange artifacts, and signs of an ancient culture supposedly connected to Egypt or Asia. The Smithsonian Institution was named as if it were involved in the discovery. It was the perfect story. A hidden entrance, an impossible civilization, a respected institution, and a secret capable of rewriting history. More than a century later, the tale still circulates online, but the Smithsonian says it has no record of the alleged expedition, no evidence of the discovery, and serious doubt that Kincaid even existed. The underground Egyptian city is almost certainly a hoax. Yet it continues to overshadow the real cultural history of the canyon. That contrast is revealing. A fabricated story about Egyptians beneath Arizona is repeated endlessly because it feels shocking. A living indigenous tradition, describing the canyon as a place of emergence, is often treated as decoration, legend, or content for someone else's mystery. The false story offers treasure. The Hopi story demands responsibility. The false story invites conquest. The Hopi story warns that worlds end when people forget how to live in balance. Perhaps that is why one spreads so easily, while the other is so often misunderstood. So what did the Hopi say was beneath the Grand Canyon? The most honest answer is not monsters, not Egyptians, not a lost army waiting in sealed tunnels. The publicly shared tradition speaks of previous worlds, emergence, migration, and a sacred opening into the present world. But sacred traditions are not laboratory reports, and they should not be stripped of meaning simply to become evidence for internet theories. There may be caves throughout the Grand Canyon. There are geological voids, hidden passages, and places few human beings have entered. That is unsurprising in a landscape this vast, but the real power of Sipapuni is not that it gives us permission to invent what might be inside. It is that it preserves a completely different understanding of where human life begins and what human beings owe to the world they enter. In the emergence story, survival is not proof of superiority. Being allowed into a new world creates responsibility. A people who have watched one world lose its balance must not repeat the same failure in the next. That message turns the story toward us. We live in a world of immense technology, extraction, speed, and access. We cut roads through sacred landscapes. We drain water from dry regions. We enter places because we can. We photograph what others ask us to leave undisturbed. And we often confuse possession with understanding. The Hopi emergence story asks whether a civilization can become powerful while forgetting the conditions that allow it to survive. It asks whether a world ends suddenly, or whether it ends slowly, each time responsibility is exchanged for appetite. At sunset, the Grand Canyon appears to change shape. Light leaves the upper cliffs first, then the lower walls darken. Distances become difficult to judge, and the canyon begins to look less like an opening cut into the earth, and more like an opening into something the surface cannot contain. Somewhere near the meeting of two rivers is a place the Hopi connect to their emergence into this world. Its precise meaning does not belong to tourists, filmmakers, or internet explorers to redefine. But the public part of the story leaves us with a warning. This may be the fourth world. It may be another chance after worlds that came before. And if the story is understood not as a map to hidden treasure, but as a lesson, then the greatest mystery is not how the ancestors came out of the earth. It is whether the people living above it have learned enough to remain here. The Grand Canyon does not need a lost Egyptian city to be mysterious. For thousands of years, it has already been something far more powerful, a place of origin, a final spiritual home, and a doorway that reminds us, every world can be lost,